What up, nerds? Welcome to the first episode of Straight Chilling in the glorious brand spanking new year 2019. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for this evening. Tonight's episode is going to be 196, recorded on Thursday, January 3rd, 2019. Tonight we're going to be talking about The Descent. It is the poll pick winner of the month. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Santa Barbara, California, my boy Randy Gandy G. Landy.
Hey! Decided not to use words this time. How you doing?
Good. I like your sounds.
Thanks, man. You know, I'm
Sound
going
good.
for some like in keeping with this movie. I'm trying out some like non-phonetic languages. They're just guttural sounds and screeching and clamoring on walls and such.
It's a new year. Learn a
Yeah.
new language.
New year, new me. I'm gonna be a mole man.
I like it.
That's my goal, my resolution.
Last but not least, calling in from Southern Korea, my boy Soju.
What up? It's your boy, Winter Chicken Dinner Stains. I took it this month. I took it.
Oh,
What did you take?
The poll pick.
Did you rob me?
Yeah, we always, I guess we kind of keep it secret, right? Isn't that like the thing where like people aren't supposed to know so they can't like spite vote us?
I mean, they're not supposed to know, but we don't keep a good secret of anything, really.
I like keeping it a secret, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I tell you, it's been a little while since I won a poll pick. I think Hocus Pocus was my last victory.
Poker poker?
What did you pick, Bob? I forgot.
The old Yabos.
The old Yabos. You picked the old Yabos?
No. I chose pieces.
You chose Pieces. And what was your pick, Randy?
I can't remember that either.
This is
I'm
the
pretty
topic
brain
was
dead.
like once movies we had already covered, but
Right.
we regretted our score.
You wanted a shot at redemption.
Yeah, I'll find out. My brain is completely shut down for the day, so
Okay.
we're in keeping with my current functionality.
Either way, the Descent one, that's all that matters.
The Descent
True.
one. Hey ho! I was actually a little bit surprised that it won.
Why do you say that?
Because scanners, that's what it was. I knew
Oh,
mine was
Scanners,
going
yeah.
pretty
It was
well for a minute.
close.
I think there was a last minute change of vote by somebody, and it snatched from the claws of victory right there.
I didn't even know you could do that. Change your vote after you were done.
I
Now
do-
it was a 3-way tie at one point in December. I know we were looking at
Yeah.
that and said like, oh shit, they're all really close. So
I don't know. Whatever it is, Descent, it's worth a look. I was actually kind of happy that this movie got picked because it's one that I was not able to record on at all. So, in the past.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And the poll pick for February is currently posted on our Patreon page. So if you support us at the $5 level or above, you can vote amongst these three films. The category for the month of February is just love. You can vote
Spooky
between
love.
Spooky love.
Spooky, woo.
You can vote between My Bloody Valentine, Audition, and probably the scariest movie that's ever been made, Ghost.
Man, those Righteous Brothers, they can really sing a spooky tune.
Starring
Dude, that's-
good Sir Patrick Swayze.
Starring the Scream Queen herself,
Patrick
Whoopi
Swayze.
Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi fucking Goldberg.
Whoopi Goldberg.
Whoopi.
Forgot that
Classic
she was in this
Scream
movie, didn't you?
Yeah, I did too. You just kind of reminded me. That's pretty good. I was just thinking the Sways.
Man, we are getting extra liberal with our genre defining here at Straight Chilling.
I mean, it is called Ghost, you know.
It's called Ghost, guys. It's horror, or
wonder
my
who
name's
picked
not
that one.
Flanagan Bon Jovi.
So far, Ghost has 0 votes, sitting at a goose egg.
What are the numbers so far?
I think there's 3 votes for.
It's a straight 50-50 right now between Audition
Yeah.
and My Bloody Valentine. So Patreon subscribers, get your ass in there and break up this monopoly, or start making some tie-breaking votes in there.
Do it.
There you go.
And also, the $10 level for January, February, and March is open on Patreon. So if you want to pick a movie for us to review, you are able to do that. I think there's like 3 spots left. So if you want us to review a movie for you before the end of March, go ahead and jump on it before they're all snatched up.
Oof.
We got 2 coming up in January, isn't that right? One next week and
yeah,
We
they're
got a couple coming.
almost going to be every other week.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
we've
actually,
a
we got
few.
some carryover. I can always get confused. You said there's
Yeah.
3 left. I'm like, well, wait a second, but we got some
Yeah.
carryovers. Yeah, from last seasons.
Yes.
You guys are basically dictating our lives now for the princely sum of $10.
Outside of Glass, we're gonna be covering a lot of the Patreon picks,
We're
and
doing
some of
it.
them are fucked up from what
Most of them
from what I
seem to
see.
be.
So people are getting back on that train after a Serbian film. Nobody really took advantage of that, did they? Was
Not
anything
particularly.
else?
That definitely was the
Not one.
standout.
But it looks like we got a couple coming up that might be kind of taking advantage of that, make us watch terrible fucked up things.
Yeah,
Great.
there's.
Great.
I think the next 2 both are pretty fucked up and heinous. So fun.
All right. Woo.
All right.
Let's do
I'm
it.
ready to have my psyche broken early in 2019, please.
We can take it.
Last bit of housekeeping. Just a reminder, we're still doing the Q&A session for the episode number 200, which is just a few weeks away. So if you got a burning question you want to ask any of us on the show, go ahead and send it in to us, and we will address it on episode number 200. And that's it. That's it for the old housekeeping. Let's go ahead and get into what we've been watching this week. Hey, Randy, what you been watching?
I watched a lot this week, and I have a feeling that I'm not going to be the only one talking Bandersnatch, so I'm going to let the next person take that. Or whoever's in. Rob, were you going to talk about Bandersnatch, or could I take it?
No, go for it. I wasn't going to talk about it.
Yeah,
Well,
go for it,
fucking
Randy.
hell.
I got a lot of
Bandersnatch,
shit
man.
to talk about.
Juice, you didn't get a chance to see it before you left the States, I take it.
I have seen it though. I
You did?
watched it. I watched it when I got back to Korea. I've been back a couple days.
I thought I didn't know it was on Korean YouTube or Korean Netflix. Okay, great.
Yeah, it is. And I'm on the side. We have a Slack channel usually dedicated to the weekly review, but we've kind of taken that over with Bandersnatch with all the different endings. I'm on there. I'm one of the last people on there, but I made it.
Yeah, everybody wanted to talk about it so bad. I was like, let's just start talking about it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I seem to have gotten a different ending than anybody else too, which I was surprised. And I was
Me
like
too.
the last one to make it to the thing. So like all of us seem to have gotten like a lot of different results.
There's a significant. Okay, so well, just to set the stage for people who don't know what the fuck Bandersnatch is. So Black Mirror just put out a mirror. They just put out a mirror.
It was black.
No, they put out a film called Bandersnatch, and it's a choose-your-own-adventure film hosted on Netflix. So you literally interact with this as if it was a choose-your-own-adventure book, except it's acted in front of you. Like it's all like via the streaming platform. So for me, we watched it this first time, and I don't want to spoil it really. We can, I could talk about this for hours and hours, but basically, like, it's a really novel concept, and I don't know that it can be done all the time. Like, people are like, "Oh, this is a whole new medium. You can have choose-your-own-adventure movies all over Netflix." And I'm like, "Yeah, you can, but I don't think that they're going to." There's only a certain amount of good that they can be because the nature of like linear storytelling doesn't really allow for you to set up all of the things that are going to be knocked, all the pins that are got to be knocked down.
Yeah.
Without having some superfluous ones that just don't wind up paying off at all. So
Yep.
like with that, but all that said, like it was a fucking great time. Like I had a fucking blast just like picking through it and things like that. Like the different choices. There's a lot of like attention to detail. Like it's kind of got a meta awareness to it, written into the story, where like when you make a choice that ends your story, it'll give you an option to go back to a certain point and make a different choice that'll extend it, which is great. But also it'll give you a little like recap of everything up to that point. And sometimes little things will change about a recap. Things that didn't happen exactly the same way will show up.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I like how they like paid a lot of attention to like the experience overall and didn't feel enslaved by the format itself exactly.
Yeah,
So,
and not to harp on it too much, I thought it was handled really well. I spent about an hour doing mine, which is about a regular episode of Black Mirror. And I was happy with the ending that I got because it felt like a typical kind of Black Mirror episode to me. Like once I was all finished, it actually played out pretty well for me. But I saw like some other people's endings and like how much time they spent to kind of get there. And I was like, well, whoa, that's kind of intense. So I guess it really could go either way. I was really happy, and I was surprised too that there were so many other options, because once I started reading what everybody else was getting, as I was doing it, I didn't feel like I had a ton of options. Like I didn't feel like it made a whole lot of difference at the time, but then seeing how many different possibilities there were, I realized like, oh shit, I guess like it really did make a big difference.
Yeah, and I went through for I watched mine was about an hour and a half, but then I went back through and like did just as many different variations as I could because I was just curious, and I didn't want to read about it. I'd rather watch it.
Sure,
so
yeah.
I watched a bunch of different endings, and I think that the first one I got was, if not my favorite, then like my runner-up. And then there's one ending that I think is pretty clearly supposed to be like, if there is a definitive ending, that would be it. Yeah. And then there are some that are completely bananas that are not bananas in a like, oh my God, Black Mirror blew my mind kind of way, but in a what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
that's just kind of silly. Like, which I guess you can do that when you have the downside to writing multiple endings is that you have to have a character arc that pays off in all of them in some way, in some unique way. But the upside is that you can have it land wherever the fuck you want, and there's no repercussions. You could have a terrible ending, and nobody's going to give you shit about it because they'll just find one they like better. So it's an interesting breed, man. Goes without saying, I've never experienced anything quite like it. Other than that, I watched Becky and I had a movie exchange night where our theme was cannibalism.
Nice.
And I chose a 70s sex comedy called Eating Raoul, which I had never seen, but I had a hard time finding something that was cannibal oriented and not a second horror movie right back to back. So it was fucking bizarre. It was a Criterion collection, of course. And it's about this like really boring couple. Literally, their last name are the Blands, and they're like the only not sex crazed people in all of 70s New York, and everybody else is just at swinger parties and shit. And this drunk swinger stumbles into their apartment and tries to rape the wife, and they kill him. And then they start selling the bodies to a dog food company. It's fucking nuts. It goes off the rails, and it's like. I don't know if I even think it was good. It was just kind of an experience. And then we also watched The Farm, which is a recent horror flick. Have either of you guys seen that?
No, but Becky threatened us with a Patreon pick, so
I know.
I'm gonna see if she follows through with that.
I looked up a couple stills, and I'm not excited about.
I saw that too. I looked
you?
at like the poster and shit, and I watched the trailer. I was like, oh, this seems right up Becky's alley.
Yep.
I know not a thing about it. She's like, I have a movie I want to watch, so we're gonna have an exchange night, and the theme is cannibalism. So I had no choice, and you guys might have no choice also when she chooses to go the Patreon route. But let me tell you, man, it was both totally expected and totally not. And I'll wait to see if you guys have to watch it or not to expound on that. But boy, what? She said she's doing it right now. Hey, we got a new Patreon.
Now there's only one spot left.
No, there should be two spots, I think.
It's I can't keep up with these numbers.
So, yeah, we're gonna be on a hot streak of horrible shit for our Patreon picks this month.
This season, we got like 3 months of this shit.
Yeah, it's true. This season.
Lots to look forward to. Juice, what you been watching?
Dude, I've been watching so much because I was on the flight and I watched a ton of movies there, and I watched a couple movies before I left, Bird Box and Aquaman, and then on the flight I watched John Wick 2 and a bunch of movies I don't really need to talk about. And then when I came back, I watched a couple movies, including Bandersnatch, and then one I watched last night. Was it last night? I think. that amazing, or wait, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse or whatever, that animated Spider-Man movie that's out.
Yeah.
That movie is awesome. It's
That's what people
fucking
say.
awesome. I was like, that's why it was the last night showing in Korea. Last night I was like, I gotta check this out in theaters because people are losing their shit. And I would say check it out in theaters if you're like interested in it. The animation in it is great and it looks amazing in a movie theater. The soundtrack is baller. The story is good. The comedy is like, was like had me like cracking up. So like it was a great fucking movie, and it was a great movie going experience too, because like the visuals are stunning, but also like it's just a fun ride. Like there's no stakes or it's just enjoyable all around. Like I said, the soundtrack is amazing. So like the sound in the theater is great, and like the art style and like what they do with it. I was watching like some behind the scenes like making of it, and just like it's really cool. I would like highly recommend it. It was it was a cool experience.
To me, it really seems like a hybrid of the Spider-Man Homecoming feel and Lego Movie. Like that's not just in animation style, but in tone. It seems, I haven't seen it, but from what I understand about it, like the one thing that really sold me on it before I fucking like I didn't really know this movie was coming out. It was very much a surprise for me that it even existed.
Me too, man.
But when I found out about it, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, that could be fun. I've seen some of the other Marvel animated, direct to video on demand stuff, and maybe it'll be good. But people were raving about it, and I was like, why? And then I found out that fucking the amazing Spider-Ham is in this fucking movie, which
I don't know what that is.
That's a fucking deep. That's a fairly deep pull.
Is that anything like Rum Ham?
Kind of, in that it's a pig with Spider-Man. I mean, it was like a joke in the 90s, and they revived the joke as like an extra. I don't know if it's an extra or like an integral part of the team. I have no fucking idea. But just it's like if fucking Howard the Duck had not just been a cameo, but they just had Howard the Duck movie like that same summer that Guardians came out.
And Nick Cage is in that shit. He's like a black and white Spider-Man, and like, dude, the comedy in this is like on point. It's not that typical like Marvel like quip shit. Like it's well written. Just overall, like the story, like it's a really great movie. I had a blast watching it in the movie theater. It's like I'm like, it was the last night showing in Korea, so I would probably go again this weekend if I could, but it's gone. But I'm excited to see it as soon as it like drops on video.
The animation looks great, and I love the tenacity it takes to put the amazing Spider-Ham in a major motion picture. So great, sign me up. I'll watch it hopefully soon. But we'll see.
Cool. I checked out a couple things this week. I watched The Predator, which is one that kind of got away from me last year. It got like a lot of hate. I was kind of curious about it, but it had a lot of fun watching it, man. It's written and directed by Shane Black. It had like a pretty baller cast with like Keegan-Michael Key, so it had some decent comedy. He had like some pretty funny one-liners in it. Olivia Munn, Tom Jane is in it. But it had like some great action, and like the plot is a little bit dumb, I guess, but it's fucking like the fourth Predator movie. Like I don't really know what people were expecting out of it.
Just the fourth? Oh, if you don't count
I think.
versus movies.
I just assumed there was a ton of them.
There are, if you include everything that he's shown up in. There's like at least 6.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The visuals were great, and there's like a giant ass predator, and then like some predator dogs and like some normal
predator dogs. What the fuck? Is there a fox hunting in this fucking Predator movie?
No, but they kind of like, they talk about the Predator being essentially a sports hunter and not a predator, and they make a bunch of jokes about how it shouldn't be called a predator at all, but it just sounds more badass. So they have one show up with like hunting dogs basically, because he's like a sportsman, It's
kind of almost sounds like the Puppet Master kind of reboot, like where it's super self-aware and just like pokes fun of.
Is it very self-aware? The tone looks very much a removal from any of the previous Predator movies, where it doesn't seem like it's it seems like it's taking the action way more seriously than the tone. Or the tone just seems more jokey or more jovial. Is that accurate?
It was light, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting choice, and it didn't engage. It didn't interest me when it was coming out. I was like, that looks like Battleship the movie with a predator.
I'm glad to hear that because I put the poster on my wall because the poster was pretty badass when it came out here. So I put it up, and it's nice to hear that it's not complete dog shit. I got this poster on my wall.
I had fun with it.
Cool. Well, that's nice.
I also watched the newest installation for that Into the Dark show on Hulu. It's called New Year, New You.
Okay.
And again, I liked it. I like all of these so far. I like all 4 of them. This one's obviously like a New Year's Eve set story. It's about this group of old friends that like went to high school together, and they're getting back together for the first time in several years. And they're in this sort of like old creepy house. And like it comes to pass that like one of their friends had sort of killed themselves. She committed suicide, and you like throughout the course of the story, you find out why she did that. And like one of the girls that comes back is like super rich and famous now. She's got like, you know, a YouTube channel and like her own line of makeup supplies and stuff that she promotes. And she's like very preppy and like uplifting, and all the other girls are just kind of like normal, and they seem to be like maybe a little bit down about just being less successful than this one chick is. So there's like some tension between them going on about that, and it gets out of hand, obviously. But again, it's like all these are like pretty simple plot wise, but they're like more or less all of them have been like pretty tight little narratives that are like interesting kind of character studies in a way. They seem to do a lot with a little, and again, I would recommend this one as well. New Year, New You.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, and you said they're not episodes, right? They're actual like full-length movies.
Yeah, they call them episodes, but they are like 90-minute.
90-minute. Okay,
movies,
that's what I thought. That's what I remembered.
The only one I've seen is that Puka episode, and a bit of a hot take. I didn't love it like everyone seemed to.
Yeah, Randy.
I don't know. It's not like I didn't hate it, but I felt maybe it was overhyped for me or something because my expectation was greater than what I got, for sure. But it's still like it's not bad. Like I said, it's worth a watch. This New Year, New You sounds like a more interesting concept to me, but the Puka thing, like narratively, seemed kind of fast and loose to me.
Dude, so much amazing shit has dropped. I just realized, like, in the past week, fucking Bandersnatch, people lost their shit over Bird Box.
Yeah.
Y'all just talking about that, losing their shit. Like, I mean, there's been so much, like, must-watch shit that's come out, like, in the past week that I'm just like, oh, my God, we didn't even talk about Bird Box.
We're slaves, man.
Yeah.
It's a Black Mirror.
Did you guys both watch Bird Box?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
I watched it with my mom on New Year's Eve, and it's solid. It's like, it is a lot like A Quiet Place, like everybody says, but it's, one thing that they did, this isn't really a spoiler, but like they do not show you the monster at all, which is like a complete
That's a
opposite
little
from what
spoiler,
A Quiet
Bob.
Place does.
That's a little
Yeah,
spoiler. If you think you're gonna see it, yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's better to know that going in, honestly. But you know, in A Quiet Place, they give you a ton of the monster. I don't, but
Yeah.
I kind of like that they didn't.
I prefer A Quiet Place. I know I don't think
Yeah.
it's necessarily fair that like that comparison's gonna be made, but it's gonna be made. So
Yeah.
I personally prefer A Quiet Place. I thought Bird Box was fine. People have been losing their shit. Literally, like everybody is like, "Have you watched Bird Box?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, just out of the woodwork. Like people who like don't even watch horror, they're like, "Oh, I watched Bird Box on Netflix." I'm like, "Oh shit, okay."
Yeah,
It's
for
good
some reason,
people
it's like
who don't watch as much horror as we do.
But
Yeah, I
that's
guess so.
I mean, it's
the-
still good, but
That's
not as
exactly the
mind-blowing.
itch that a quiet place scratched. So it's
Yeah.
fucking weird. On like, not only is it subject matter very similar, it sounds like I haven't seen the whole thing, or I haven't seen the movie myself, but I've seen the trailer. It sounds like not just the subject matter and the sort of like the central conceit of it is the same, but it's also like it has the same sort of mass appeal, which is interesting. Like it's got.
Yeah, it's been crazy, man.
I don't know how they kind of like landed in the exact same fucking like part of the spectrum, so close.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was intentional.
You think so?
Yeah, I would think so.
Or at least maybe with the marketing, like it's hard to say like
Well,
development wise,
that's
but I mean it's certainly like you like
It
The
is
Quiet
based
Place,
on
huh?
a book, so I don't know like how close the movie
Yeah.
is to the book or when the book came out, but it's
I
maybe
think the
they
book
kind of
came out well in advance of Quiet Place being made.
Sure,
so-
yeah.
Or being greenlit or whatever. So
Maybe A Quiet Place's success was the reason this was greenlit.
probably
It's like,
was. That's a good point.
Let's make that one.
Yeah.
Let's get Miss Congeniality to do a Jim Halpert for us.
Yeah, that'll work. Cool. Let's go ahead and get into the main feature and talk about The Descent. And as always, start off with the back of the box. What is on the back of the box? Let me navigate towards it. The plot is as follows. A caving expedition. Yeah, I know. A caving expedition goes horribly wrong as the explorers become trapped and ultimately pursued by a strange breed of predators.
Huntsman.
Rainy. Oh, never mind. It's not going to work because this is primarily an audio show.
If you want to see what people are laughing at, join our
Yeah,
YouTube.
you need to get on YouTube.
Hop
plug.
on our YouTube.
Or like actively including things that you don't get in
It'll-
the podcast.
Believe me, it's well worth your time.
Also, real quick before we talk about The Descent, I also got a text, and me and Randy have been cracking up about it behind the scenes, about Becky texted us, and she said, "Done, bitches." She has signed up for Patreon so that we have to watch The Farm in the next
Watching The
4
Farm.
months.
The fucking farm.
She's so excited to make us watch what I assume is a terrible, terrible movie.
But you don't know how it's terrible. In what ways
I
it's
feel
terrible.
like
That's the
I
real
feel
spoiler.
like I have a good indicator.
Well,
I've seen enough to take a stab at.
I wonder what I don't know
So-
I don't know what the poster looks like or any of that shit. So I'm interested to find out.
Dude,
like,
check out that poster. I think you'll be pleased. Anyways, The Descent.
Pleased.
So this is a redo. We casted this before our 100th episode for sure. This was I don't know exactly what episode, but it's been a while. It's been a while since we watched The Descent. At least probably like, I don't know, 2.5 years, 2.5 to 3 years.
It was in the first 62 episodes.
Okay, wow. So this was my pick for a regret. I had never seen it when we first watched it, and I don't know if I've seen it since, to be honest. And at the time, you guys might have to correct me on this. Y'all are faster with this kind of information, but I'm pretty sure I rated it a 2.5 out of...
Let's have a look. I'll look it up while you continue.
I think. And I regretted that. And there were a couple factors that went into it. One of them being the ending really surprised me at the time. And this time I watched the ending. There's like an alternate ending or an extended ending, I guess, with the original movie that came out in, I guess, like the UK. Yeah. And then we had watched the like American version, which is just kind of just slightly shorter, but there's some details that I preferred the ending in this one. Also, we've been given some things to think about as far as like some kind of like hidden meaning behind these killers and stuff like that that I was thinking of through the movie. They kind of made me like the ending a little more. I don't know if I buy completely into it, but just having it kind of in the back of my head like made the ending better this time around for sure. I still had some problems with, and we'll talk about it after we drop that spoiler warning. But yeah, that's why I kind of picked this one. I felt like a lot of people kind of hold this movie in high regards. And since I had never seen it the first time and I haven't seen it since, I was like, I really want to revisit it and kind of give it maybe a fair go this time around.
Yeah, you gave it a 2.5, and it looks like everybody else involved, well, almost everybody was in the 4 range. So
okay, yeah,
you were pretty low on that.
And that was the thing too. Like I remember everybody else being like 2.5, and even that kind of stuck with me. I was like, that's probably not fair. That's a Halloween 2018 right there. And I figured,
oh my gosh, we gotta put that to bed. Yeah.
This running
we
joke
should.
Is
it's 2019. All right, we'll move on.
No beefs.
Yeah, I haven't seen this movie since theaters myself. I didn't get to be on this episode, like I said earlier. So I haven't seen it since it was in a theater, and I remember liking it pretty well when it came out, and then it weirdly sort of like became almost a cult following a little bit. Like it was a fairly large release. Like it was one of those like kind of sleepers, kind of not. I think it was like an early year February maybe release, something like that, and so like you put that in the category at the time of like One Missed Call and shit like that has every right to be dog shit. And this movie just wasn't. It was like pretty well done for that ilk of movie. So I was like, yeah, I like this movie. And then you guys recorded it and I couldn't be there. I was really bummed out. I was happy to rewatch it and like get a second pass at it a little bit. I also had never heard of the second ending. And I did watch that as well. So like they're the original ending, I guess I should say, the UK ending. So I'm excited to talk about it. Are we spoilered? Are we good?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. I'll hold my lip then.
Thanks. I've seen this several times. I saw it in the theater and, a couple times since. It's one of those movies that, like one of the rare movies that I can still watch and rewatch, and I find it scary. Like it doesn't get less scary. It like still freaks me out in a certain way. Like I don't know that I am necessarily claustrophobic, but I definitely like feel claustrophobic when I watch this movie. And the like crazy amounts of blood really kind of bothers me in this too. I don't know. It's one of those movies that kind of stuck with me ever since the first time I saw it. And I enjoy it every time I watch it. I feel like we would all definitely recommend the hell out of The Descent if you haven't seen it already. Watch it and then finish the show. Here goes that spoiler warning. All right, so they were all dead the whole time, right?
Well,
I think we were dead the whole time.
Oh, shit.
I want to touch on I don't want to touch on it right now, but I might forget. So remind me to touch on the blood again. There's something I specifically want to mention. Rob mentioned like all the amounts of blood. I want to get back to that later. But real quick, just so this movie is pretty, as far as story goes, it's pretty straightforward. And I want to bring up at the beginning of this as we talk about it, because I want to explore some of the details. But is this alternate kind of thought behind who the killer is in this movie?
It's like a fan theory.
Yeah, so just the basic like synopsis. It's pretty much there's 6 women who are friends and they're kind of like adventurers, and they get together to go rock climbing, cave climbing, I guess, cave exploring. Yeah,
spelunking the crystal.
And in North Carolina, there's 6 of them. They all go together, and one of them's just kind of like an adrenaline freak. And instead of going to like the designated caves that they're supposed to go to, she takes them to this like unknown cave, this undiscovered cave that I don't know how she knows about it. But anyways, she takes them there. And of course they get stuck in there and nobody knows that they're actually there, and they have to find their way out. But then inside there are these like creatures that are essentially like vampire-like creatures that can't see, but they can hear really well. And they start, and then they have to survive those things as well. But the fan theory is at the beginning of this movie, one of the girls, Sarah, the main kind of woman, she loses her daughter and her husband in a car accident. That's the first scene. Like the 3 of the girls, they're going down like some rapids, like, oh god, we're adventurers or whatever. And then as soon as they get out, like they're driving away, Sarah's with her family and they get in a wreck and her husband and her daughter die. There's a quick scene of her in the hospital, and then it jumps right into like the rest of it, like 2-3 years later, whenever this is.
I think it was 1 year actually.
Oh, just one. Okay. So pretty quick afterward. And the fan theory idea, that I think Hydraberg put it up, one of
On the
our
Slack,
followers in the Slack, and it's essentially that there are no monsters, there are no vampire creatures in the cave. That Sarah, the woman who has lost her family, is going crazy and kills all of her friends, essentially,
Yeah.
in the cave, which
She
was an
definitely
interesting
does
theory
kind
to
of go
me.
crazy in the movie.
She does, yeah, and there's a couple scenes where like she gets pretty brutalized, and she goes kind of through this process where, like Rob's saying, there's this one point where there's literally like this pool of blood that she falls into and fights with this other female like vampire creature, the only female vampire creature that I think we see in here. And emerges like this badass. It's kind of like a revenge type deal where like she kind of goes through this process and emerges like much stronger and much kind of crazier and like
much crazier.
Just like goes kind of buck wild and like slaughters a bunch of these creatures and stuff like that. And so it's interesting to think about as you're watching the movie for several reasons.
She has a couple like rebirth scenes, that being one of them.
Yeah.
She's like kind of goes buck wild. She finally starts going buck wild. And the last one is like at the very end of the movie where she finally finds a way out of the cave and she like crawls up through the, moss and twigs and whatnot. And she's sort of like birthed into the sunlight.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. There's like, I don't know, so it's like pretty much an all-female cast with the exception of the husband who dies like immediately,
Yeah. He's a two-line wonder, really.
Yeah, he is. So I don't know. There's like a lot of, I guess, like female shit going on, like female imagery, I guess. Like them spelunking into like the caverns is sort of like, I don't know. It's definitely a metaphor for like Sarah's like descent into maybe insanity, I guess. You could look at it that way. Or like kind of her going through the different steps of like the grieving process, perhaps too. There's like a bunch of different ways that I think you can kind of cut this movie up.
Yeah,
should you choose.
I think I gotta say, I don't think I'm a huge fan of this fan theory, and I don't like the symbolism and all that stuff. Like I kind of like it as I think I like it its best. I think it's its best self as sort of a straightforward tale. And it like having it be about the relationships that are on screen that we do know is happening. Like come to find out as a viewer that the woman who takes them to this cave, who's their friend or whatever, Juno had been cheating with Sarah's husband, and had received gifts from him and stuff. Like she had an affair with him, and we all kind of know this going on. Some of her friends know, but they kind of keep it from her because she's lost both those people. So I guess they're giving a proper grieving period, whatever their justification is. We never find that out. But I like this idea of just people who have underlying issues with each other and just underlying issues in and of themselves for Sarah, just grieving in general, dealing with this intense fucking situation. And they're thrill seekers. Like, I don't know. I don't even see it necessarily as like, I love that it's an all female cast, but I don't know, like I don't know how thematically important that is, so much as it is just about a group of friends, and this is their history, and this is what they like to do. But they bit off more than they can chew, and now they have to fucking figure out what to do next, and who's gonna leave who behind, and who's gonna find out what. Like all that shit comes into a very visceral head. I like that about it. So the idea that there's like a secret tale about Sarah going insane, I feel like it might be like that may very well be something you could read into it like that, but for me it's like it's too much. Like it's like it doesn't need it. You can still have all those same themes and not have to find a Shyamalan-esque twist to it. So yeah. That's kind of my draw. Like it almost distracts from the experience of climbing through fucking mud and shit. If you just like, oh, that's all in her head though. So it's really just her battling with her demons. And I don't know. It just doesn't feel necessary.
It's not. I would agree.
It's not necessary. I'll say one thing that it helped me, or well, not helped me with. So one of my biggest beefs in this movie the first time I watched it, and why I kind of dropped it to a 2.5. I remember in my kind of justification is at the ending of this movie. The big thing for me that I really didn't like, and I still just on a base level, like if you just take this movie as it is that it's just Sarah and Juno left. And the big kind of like ending twist thing is that Sarah sees a way out, and there are some vampire, I think they come like crawlers or something like yeah, crawlers coming. You can hear them. And Sarah essentially like axes her friend like in the leg, Juno, and leaves her to be eaten by the crawlers while she escapes. And there's a couple things that go behind it. One, that's the chick who cheated on her, cheated with her husband. And also too, Juno does this thing. She kind of goes badass too, where she is killing a bunch of these crawlers, and she accidentally kills one of their friends as well.
Mm-hmm. She kind of almost kills her. She stabs her in the neck with her little
and leaves her for dead.
Yeah,
and so leaves her.
Sarah finds her, and Beth, the girl who's like bleeding out of her neck, gives her the necklace that says "Love Every Day," which is like something her husband said, and she kind of finally connects the dots in that moment that like, oh, Juno's been having an affair with my husband.
Not only was there an affair, but she left my friend to die.
Yeah.
And Juno could not have fucked up more times in this movie. Like,
yes,
could you? You're a morally bad person for sleeping with your friend's husband, first of all. Second of all, you are a dumb as shit idiot if you're gonna go spelunking in a cave that nobody knows you're there, and not even the people going with you know that they're going to an unknown cave. That's fucked up. And then 3, to just leave behind somebody you stabbed in the neck. Like, I on one level I get that because she's facing down fucking real demons and shit. But if I wasn't informed by those other things, I might be able to forgive her for that. But no, fuck her. Like, she just continuously fucks up, both on purpose and not. And it just like there's no more loathsome character in this movie, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't feel. It still doesn't. It doesn't feel justifiable, even though she is shitty for those 3 things specifically. They're kind of spaced out in this movie, and even when she kills the friend, like you said, you're even kind of like understanding. Like, she's in the midst of battle, like in this thing, and like her friend, like it's clearly an accident. Like, and she like completely like goes into shock when she like leaves her friend. It's not she's like, oh, fuck you, or like, oh, you cheated on my husband. She's like, you can see that she's like dealing with it. Like,
there's no malice in it.
No, absolutely. And she gets stabbed in the neck. So it's not like you're like, oh, I can save you. Like, you're in a cave
with demons
miles below ground. You don't know if there's an exit. There's literal like vampire things hunting you. It's not like you can be like, let me drag your ass out of here. It's like, like, it's understandable. So even like when Sarah turns on her, it's still like, it feels weird to me. I'm like, that's like your friend of like years, and you're the only two to like make it out, and she's fine, and she's helping you fight these things off. Like, they go through this thing where there's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 things guarding the exit, and like they've worked together to like kill these things, and then all of a sudden like Sarah just like completely turns on a dime and like leaves her friend of years to die, which is the same thing she's apparently pissed at that Juno did to Beth. Like, oh, you left my friend to die. It's like, so you're just gonna be an equally shitty, terrible person and leave your friend to die?
I don't know. She had to fucking mercy kill her friend because her other friend who fucked her husband and then disappeared for a year stabbed her in the neck. Whether or not it's an accident, she doesn't know that. She only knows what Beth told her, which is she shouldn't be trusted. She fucking like if I'm her in that situation, I have sympathy for Sarah and all of that. And for Juno, it's just like I understand she makes understandable mistakes on some level. Like, okay, you wanted to patch things up with your friend because you have guilt, so you try and like name a cave after her by going to this cave. Okay, I get it, but it's fucking stupid. And obviously it's more than that. It obviously like she's to blame for everything that happens in this movie. Everything. She
Yeah.
really is. Her husband dies because he's like feeling guilty in the car and not paying attention to the road. You can I could tell that right away. And that kills her daughter.
That's his fault too, though.
No, it is. That is, but like she's still like I'm not directly. She didn't pull a trigger or anything.
Yeah.
But she is at the center of every death pretty much in the whole fucking movie. And at the end, you're talking to a person. Sarah is a person who has been swimming in blood and who has straight up murked like 5 fucking vampire mole people. And like she might not be in the right space even if she doesn't know those things. So the fact this just all kind of compounds into what I think is a pretty like not reasonable but a pretty understandable course of action for her. It's just like, no, you don't get to get the fuck out. Beth doesn't get out, you don't fucking get out. And I'm getting my ass out as far as I can. Like I can understand that train of thought personally.
There's another kind of smaller scene where these vampire creatures or the crawlers are like they're going apeshit, and one of the girls is sort of screaming. I forget which one it is, but she's screaming. And Juno and Rebecca or one of the other girls, they're like sort of hiding, and like snuggling. And the other girl says like, all the noise she's making, she's going to bring all those creatures right down on top of her head. And Juno goes, as long as they're not on mine.
Was that Juno?
Sort of like, yeah.
No. It wasn't Juno. It was the two
it?
sisters. It was the two sisters. The nurse and like the mom type or whatever. Yeah, Juno is making actually all the noise.
She was the one screaming for Sarah.
And then the nurse girl, the younger girl, is like, as long as it's like not on me. So they were even kind of like against Juno a little bit too. They were like, well, I kind of fucked Juno. And they bolt too. They're like, they're sisters and they kind of take off on everybody. As soon as like the shit goes down, like Juno at least is like fighting bitches and stuff like that. Like those sisters, they're like, peace. Like I'm out of here. All for one and one for all, man.
See,
I guess that's not
not
the appropriate.
Fucking
no,
YOLO
there's like
might be the
YOLO. YOLO.
That's the thing is like everybody's going through this insane situation, and personally, like Rob, you were saying earlier about the claustrophobia in this movie. I've been caving. I've actually shoved a church youth group has shoved my fat Porky Pig ass into a hole in the ground, and I can tell you it is fucking terrifying to be down there and have to like wade through a puddle to get underneath a rock in the middle of pitch blackness. It's fucking horrifying. So I'll never do it again. It was before I saw this movie, or else I would have gone.
That one scene where Sarah
we're already in a panic state. Am I back?
You're back.
You're back. Done talking. Yeah.
No, and like, so not only that, but they're also trapped. They get trapped because their friend fucking lied to them about where they were. And on top of like all of this, like, you don't need anything else. This could be a movie just about that. This could be 127 hours or whatever that James Franco movie, like on fucking like crack or some shit. That was a bad improv, but whatever. Yeah, like, but then they throw in fucking these demon mole people, fucking Nosferatu asses running around, like just like skittering across the walls like fucking insects. Like, I can understand why you would want to leave your friends behind or want to get out at all costs. Is how they probably look at it.
So real quick, I want to talk about the blood. I wanted to mention this, and I'm curious. I want people to kind of like respond or like let me know, and you guys too. So there's something that this movie made me realize, like in both counts. It's really weird because we watch a lot of horror. So in real life, I don't like blood. Like, so blood can literally like make me pass out. Like if somebody's like bleeding or like it, like if I see like a puddle of blood or so somebody cuts their finger, like I get woozy. Like,
hates me.
I really get woozy. But in movies, it doesn't bother me at all. Like she's swimming in blood and like nothing. I've got no thing at all. Like it doesn't bother me. I had this other inverse thing that's really weird though. When I watch scary movies, I say it all the time. I'm such a fucking tension bitch. Like the movies where like a fucking jump scare's coming or what. I hate that shit. Like I'm like, oh fuck, here, oh god, where is it? Like I just totally bitch out. But like when we in real life though, I like no fear is to be had when we go to like Universal Studio. Yeah, the haunted houses. I'm like, this is all fit. Like there's no tension. Like so there's this weird inverse between like movies and real life and those two things. And I'm curious if that happens to anybody else. Like, are there things that like you're really scared of, but then when you see it in a movie, you're like, fuck that. But then like in an inverse kind of thing, like something that like scares you really in movies, but like doesn't affect you at all in real life.
Go ahead.
Not particularly. I don't think I have anything like that offhand. Like blood doesn't really bother me in real life.
Yeah.
Obviously, if there's like a pool of it that I fell in, that would bother me. That's not realistic.
Oh shit! Come on.
But see, you were mentioning about like all the blood in this movie. Like, was it bothering you at all?
Or, like, the hell out of me. Yeah.
See, it doesn't bother me, but I hate blood.
Disgusting. But yeah, I don't really mind blood.
See, no, I don't mind the blood either, especially when it's like not directly coming out of an orifice, like coming out of a person or a creature. Like if it's literally like a bucket of blood or some shit, I'm like, that it looks like nothing to me. That thing that's dumped on Carrie is Caro syrup, and that's all I can think of. Like it does.
Yeah.
But like when you see scenes where people are getting stabbed or whatever, I'll get a little like flare, and I'll get a little tension from that. Flare, what? But then in real life, in real life, I don't have a problem with regular blood or anything like that. Even like if there's somebody bleeding quite a bit, I probably wouldn't freak out too bad. At least, not too bad. But then when I can't watch like surgical shows and shit like that. I haven't been able to do that ever. Like if it's actually like somebody actively, and especially when it's like slowly and deliberately harming a human body, that shit bothers me. And I get some of that reflected in some movies I watch, but for the most part, like gore, especially when it's like over the top or disassociated from a human body, it doesn't really affect me. I am, or like as far as jump scares go, I get like, I'm the same way when it's in the theaters, but I'm exactly the same when I'm at fucking Halloween Horror Nights. I don't like handle it well at all. I'm a jump scare like genetically. My whole family jump scares. So I have jump scared my mom accidentally more times than I've
seen that happen.
So
Andy.
That can buy that honestly for sure.
Okay. I'm curious if that like is a thing with anybody else. Hit us up on Slack or Instagram or whatever. It's just this movie specifically, and I think too, the twins, I think before we watched this movie for the first time, when I gave it a 2.5, they were talking it up like, oh, you hate blood, you're gonna like not like this movie or whatever. And I think that might have like added to my like not enjoyment of it. I was like, it doesn't bother me at all, actually. Like this big pool of blood, I'm like, it's a movie, I don't know. So it just kind of brought that back to me, like, oh, weird, I got this weird thing where it's like inverse, like between fantasy and real life, these two things, like I am scared of them in one instance, but I'm not in the other instance. It's really weird. So I was curious if anybody else had that. Hit us up.
I don't think I am actually claustrophobic, or at least I've never really experienced that in real life. But the scene in this movie where Sarah gets stuck in the rocks really does bother me. And also there's this other scene in The Blair Witch where the girl has to like crawl through a tunnel underneath the cabin.
Oh yeah,
and
the new Blair Witch
down there with the witch like chasing her. Yeah, the new one. That shit bothered the hell out of me.
Dude, you don't have to be, just for the record, I don't think you have to be claustrophobic by diagnosis to feel tension at the idea of being caught in some rocks, like in a cave situation. Like I've done it. Like I've come out the other end safely with a church group. So I don't need to like
praise Jesus.
Like it freaks me out on its own, but like watching it in a theater, like it's just I don't think you have to be like certifiable to be afraid of that shit when it comes on. It's supposed to cause tension. So
I guess I'm just a tension bitch too.
Tension bitch.
Well, why we wouldn't be a fucking horror movie podcast if we weren't? We'd be a Patrick Swayze podcast.
Hopefully.
Coming at you this February, Swayze cast.
I just want to see those hips are rocking,
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody. I'm getting crazy like Patrick Swayze.
So this theory, there's a couple things I like about this fan theory about Sarah being the killer. I don't think it like holds up 100%.
It definitely doesn't to me.
But I can see some things where like maybe the director wanted to be able to leave it ambiguous, because there's definitely what the fuck? Oh, my light just went out. That was weird.
Spooky.
It's the beginning. The beginning of the end.
Not attention, bitch, huh?
So there was some things. Wait, what was I saying? Okay, so like at the beginning, before they go into the cave, the kind of like mom like character who's always worrying about everybody, she like goes over these things. She's like, oh, if you're in a cave, you can experience like claustrophobia, and she like specifically says, I think it's the last thing, is like hallucinations or whatever. So that's kind of like the first thing. They're also always focusing on her pills. So Sarah has to take pills after the accident. So, and she leaves them in their cabin, and then they're down in the the cave for a long time. And also she just has regular hallucinations. Like she sees her daughter with like a cake, and when she's in the hospital, she sees like all the lights go out like one by one. So like she has like some mental instability, and like they focus on that specifically. Also, she's like when they first go down in the cave, they're all exploring like this big open area, and she sees these like bloody like kind of claw marks, and she puts like her hand into it, and she's like all alone, like by herself, like nobody else sees it, and she does that. So I don't know. There's some things that like hint at it. Obviously, she gets covered in blood, which we see as she falls into this pool of blood. And like I said before, at the time she's wrestling with the only female creature that we see, which I think could be a huge bit of symbolism, because then she emerges from this pool of blood, and when everybody else sees her, obviously she's covered in all this blood, but by this time several of the friends have died. So it could easily be like, oh, there's no pool of blood, like she's been murdering these people as everybody else is kind of scattered. So I mean, there's definitely like hints toward that it could work.
Is there?
But like Juno kills several of the creatures, so I'm like, well, how does that kind of work? Like they all seem to like see them, like they all mention them together. Like maybe if they made it more ambiguous, then maybe. But I mean, everybody that doesn't die immediately like says something about the creatures, or says something, like they're killed by Juno.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
That's my big problem with it too. Is like you can't. That theory only holds water if you completely ignore the fact that people fight these things independent of Sarah. The whole fucking movie, like the entire bulk of the action takes place in, if this theory is to be believed, in a fantasy only in Sarah's mind. But the other, is she imagining that they're not saying the things that they would say, like Sarah, stop, or what the fuck? There's no creatures. What are you talking about? Like they just gloss that over from her perspective. I don't think that works for me. Like symbolically or like thematically, sure. Like I think those things can exist either way. But like take Babadook for example. Like they left that ambiguous to a T. Like there's only one thing, and it's the very end of that movie, without spoiling it, that would dictate whether or not it's all within the mind of one of the characters or if it's a reality or whatever. I think it's pretty they kind of like they don't have these sort of unexplainable flaws in one of the stories. They just have two parallel possibilities, and they never like intersect in a way that contradicts one or the other. This movie contradicts that theory as much as people. I think it just reeks to me of people trying to see something, trying to be the like find the smartest take on something, even at the expense of reality of the movie, or even at the expense of like ignoring huge chunks of the film. I don't know. It bothers me.
I think it's fair though, because I mean there are things that like I feel like the director included that. I mean, it's even like the whole like the descent, and like Rob said, like the descent into madness and stuff like that. Like, I mean, it's true fair. It's fair. It's just there in the theory, there are certainly some holes. It made it more tolerable for me that she would kill Juno then. So that was one of the things where I was like, well, if this theory is kind of like hinted at or like something the director wanted to kind of leave kind of ambiguous, that makes more sense because she's the last one left and she's not actually leaving her for creatures because there are no creatures. She's she's killing them in the same way that she's killed the rest of the crew. So I mean that kind of made that a little more tolerable for me, I guess.
That
and
didn't
the big
bother me.
well,
Sorry.
yeah, I mean, so it kind of goes both ways. There's some things that like doesn't fit. There's some things that do fit. Like, I mean, like the whole, like like there are things that like make it seem like it's a possibility for sure that there is a deeper like she is mentally unstable. She does have to take medication, and they do like there are lingering shots like, oh, she's leaving her medication behind, where like the bottle is in focus and like it's like stays there. So I mean, and she has hallucinations, like she sees her daughter, you know, the daughter blows out the candles, there's, you know, 5 girls on there. So I mean, it like, you know, it holds water for sure.
Like knocked aside. She only does like hallucinates her daughter when she's been knocked aside or something. And to me, like, you don't have to have. It's not necessary for us to say that she killed all her friends and that there were no creatures in order to say that she had a psychotic break. Like, yeah. I don't think it's necessary to say that. And the fact that the math doesn't add up on that theory, just in terms of how they interact with the creatures, like. If there were no creatures, they did a shit poor job of conveying that. And I think you're right, though. Like, actually, I'm going to read this piece of trivia now. Let me see here. It says... It was prior to the release of the sequel, it was speculated among fans that the crawlers may have been a figment of Sarah's imagination and that she actually killed her friends as she gradually went insane. Director Neil Marshall acknowledged this theory and revealed that he removed a shot where this would have suggested that the crawlers were not real. So it was definitely on his mind. Yeah. The thing is, there's more trivia here that I'll get to later that seem to suggest that he didn't know how he wanted to end this movie in the first place, which is why he was okay completely, like, in my opinion, bombing the ending by comparison to the original UK ending. Like, by like completely switching it up based on your continent. That shows that he wasn't that dedicated to whatever ending you wound up seeing. And he obviously had, like, some eyes towards this theory. The thing is, like, he clearly scrapped it because he put in information that completely contradicts it. So for me, it's interesting as like a academic thought process, and it's an interesting way of, like, uncovering some of the themes and things like that. It'd make a fun fucking film class paper, but I don't think it holds water in terms of the narrative that we receive. So on one level, I'm like, yeah, it makes, like, you're pointing out all the things that I knew already without having to justify it all by saying she went insane.
Yeah.
or rather that she had killed her friends and that the things weren't real. I don't know. I guess I had a little bone to pick about that, but I'm being a little harsher than I actually feel about it, but I don't know. It just kind of seemed to me like somebody was trying to find the twist. And at that time in horror movies, I'm not surprised that fans of this movie kind of went that way. It was lousy twists at the time because of the Shyamalan effect. So, like, every movie had some sort of, like, oh, it turns out, like, that's where the joke comes from. It was this era in horror movies and not low end, but low budget horror movies. Everybody was trying to squeeze in a brain bender at the end of every movie. So everybody was looking for it, and they're like, well, what if this is it? What if it's a Jacob's Ladder? Every movie has a Jacob's Ladder if you look at it long enough. That's what fucking How Did This Get Made is proven time and time again. Yeah. So.
And there's things like the bones, like there's a shit ton of bones down there, and you're like 2 miles. They say like, oh, we're 2 miles underground. It's like, where would the bones come from? You know, I mean, there's definitely a lot of things. Yeah. But I thought there was enough there too that, like, they give it, especially to, like, the whole, like, she's the only, like, female creature, that one that we see where she wrestles with it and emerges from the pool of blood, like. You know, like, what's to say, like, that wasn't one of her friends or whatever? Like, oh, Juno, stop. Or, I mean, not Juno, Sarah, stop.
Well, actually,
that's
that scene is interesting from a thematic perspective, even without that, because what it shows is her fighting off her attacker, a male demon thing, male mole person.
Female.
And then a female comes up and grieves over her mate and then attacks her, and she has that's a foil for herself. Yeah. So there is some symbology happening there, whether or not it has anything to do with that actually being her friend Becca or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, she's literally fighting her actual demons at that moment in a fucking AP lit fucking short story. So, yeah. I don't know.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to tackle before we rate this thing?
No. We covered it pretty good.
Juice, why don't you kick us off out of 5? How did you feel about The Descent? Round 2.
Yeah, I think watching this alone and being aware of like knowing what the ending was and having the alternate ending and thinking of this, kind of fan theory, like I did enjoy this movie, and I think it's much better than a 2.5 than I gave it before. One of the things that we didn't really touch on, or we did a little bit, but just not like the creatures don't show up until like, I don't know, the last 30 minutes of the movie. It's mostly like them in the cave, which is cool because you're dealing with like real life fears of like one being afraid of the dark, like just being like, like, oh shit, our lights are going to go out eventually. And it's like dark as fuck down there. Survival, claustrophobia, fear of heights. Like they're constantly, like having to climb over pits and like, so just through this movie, like Rob said, like you're just experiencing like real life fears, like, oh shit, you're stuck in between some rocks, like you can't move, and like that shit like is real tension. And then on top of it, they throw in like these really cool like creature designs that are also terrifying, and like pools of blood and stuff like that toward the end. So like there's a lot to be. This movie is scary. Like it's a good source of horror, just all around through and through. One of the beefs that I still kind of have with this movie, or maybe it's a new kind of beef, I guess, that's going to drop the score a little bit, is where this movie really reflects its time for me was the ending. Some of like the tone between action and horror at the end when they're like fighting these vampire things. Like at one point, like Juno like rushes in and like throws an axe through one of their back and like breaks its neck or whatever. And then like the action gets a little cheesy. Like it starts to feel like a 2000s-esque movie where you're like, oh, that's kind of ridiculous. Or like, so toward
There's
the
no
end,
bullet
like
time though.
Like I've always had I've always had a little beef like with just kind of the general ending of this movie, the leaving Juno behind, and then I was like the tone like between the action and the horror like isn't really done super well at the end where they're like fighting these things. I was like, I don't know. So it gets a little cheesy at the end. Ultimately though, I'm going to end this score at a 4, which is much higher than my 2.5. I think this movie is well acted. The story is good. The chemistry between the actresses is really good. It's scary, good creature design and everything like that. It's just even with the new ending too, where she's kind of like left alone and the creatures are about to like swarm on her. I was like, it's better. It was better than the like short ending of the US version, but it still leaves a little bit to be desired. It still feels like a little kind of poots out a little bit. I don't know. It's not super strong either way.
It really could have ended with her crawling up towards light and that then just cut to black.
Yeah,
it really could have done something like that if they wanted to. Go ahead.
Yeah, either way, it's a solid movie, and I'm glad we revisited it. And 2.5 is not fair. It's not fair. So I had to redeem myself a little bit.
Good job. Randy, how do you feel out of 5?
Well, I really like this movie. I always have, and then I was reminded of how much I like it by watching it again. It's a good fucking movie. It's very, very filled with tension for me. I don't like enclosed spaces all that much, and I've done the rock climbing thing, so I'm familiar with that a little bit in my vague memory of being almost panicked at the prospect of crawling through fucking rocks as a portly high schooler. Like, and then the creatures themselves I thought were really fucking well done. They seem vicious, they seem fast, and at no point, I mean, they're supernatural seeming on, like, to us as people who obviously never come in contact with anything like it, but they're not so much so that we think that they couldn't exist. Like, there's some sort of reasoning behind the way that they are, and I like that. And also, they just look good. They just fucking look fucking dangerous. Yeah. So let's see. Like, I thought the acting was pretty good. I thought that the score at the beginning was a little overblown, but eventually, like, when it gets to the more action oriented stuff, once they get down into the cave, the movie really comes into its own, I think. It's just like fucking that setting is so strong for me. And I don't know, the arc of Sarah I think makes sense. I do also prefer the UK ending, which I had not seen before this week. I definitely prefer it because it pays off those visions of her daughter, and I think that's nice to have paid that off. And also, I don't see anything all that strong about her seeing the ghost of Juno in the car in the last scene of the American version of the ending. To me, it's like, for me, the way I was watching it anyway, as somebody who wasn't really buying that whole theory or whatever, I was like, okay, so now she's just straight up having hallucinations of all dead people. She's turned into Haley Joel Osment. And am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, sorry. It looked like we faded for a minute.
Yeah, you froze for a scotch.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, so I think that it's a good arc for her. I think that her killing her friend who betrayed her in multiple ways, fucked her over, and caused all her friends to die, both directly and indirectly. I think that that's a justified revenge motive for somebody who has literally just fucking killed a bunch of demons with an axe and had to fight or flight her way through her own grief. Literally, she fought that female mole person, and she was literally, it was face down your grief or die trying. That was it. That, like, symbolically, that's what was going on for her. And she came out the other side stronger, but more primal and less forgiving, and not less naive overall. So I think that's a really interesting arc. I think it works. It's a classic arc. And the endings, none of them are like especially good, but I like the UK ending, and I would be satisfied with that, simply because it pays off her daughter's birthday cake thing. Yeah, it's a good fucking movie, and it gives me the willies, so I'll give it a 4. Also, I want to point out that any one of the women in this movie could absolutely murder me without a fucking flicking a wrist. These women are badasses. The two of them crawl hanging from the ceiling to set up like lines for them to crawl across these pits. And just watching them do that, I might as well imagine myself growing wings and flying away, because that's how likely that is for me.
Yeah.
Fucking nuts.
Yeah, that's just some great tension scenes too, because they're like over a pit.
Yeah.
I think the second scene, whoever was like crawling across the ceiling, one of the creatures was actually like hanging out on the ceiling and drops down and like slits her throat open, but she grabs a hold of that thing and like basically
stabs it
with her. Oh, does she?
Yeah, she stabs it and it falls down into another pit.
Yeah.
And then she hangs there in a really awesome marionette ragdoll, neck open, bleeding. That was a great scene.
She's also doing that with like terrible rope burn on her hand. So she's like crawling across the ceiling, like trying to get across. Like, they're all badass. Yeah.
I would have absolutely died 10 minutes into this movie. Just crawling through the rock, I would be dead. Like, well, this is where I get smushed.
Well, we lost Randy. I'm gonna give this a 4 as well. I don't remember what I gave it last time.
You gave it a 4.5.
Oh,
Bob, it dropped on Bob.
That's very interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I still like this movie a lot. There's, as far as like scares go, it's got a lot of really great scares, like jump scares, but they're like earned in this movie. There's like probably my favorite one is they have this infrared scene where they're like scanning around trying to find these creatures because it's pitch black, and one of them kind of like pops up. It's awesome. Makes you poop your drawers every time.
That's another kind of 2000s like scene.
Yeah.
Like that's,
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah,
they did
it
that
is.
shit a lot. Like everybody's like, "Oh, we can do this in the dark."
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
It shows its age a little bit, but it's still solid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even like the intro credits, like the font and like the style of it, it feels dated. But if you just kind of ignore some of that stuff, it's still like a pretty great movie. And the ending definitely doesn't really land. It doesn't feel like it drives anything totally home. But other than that, I don't really have many complaints. Like the characters are pretty well written. It's got like a lot of really great action sequences. Like it doesn't pull any punches. I don't know. It's like a truly successful, scary fucking movie, and that's kind of a rare thing, I think. So to pull that off, my hat's off to you, Neil. Don't fuck up Hellboy. That's all I gotta say. So yeah, obviously our aggregate is going to be a 4. Let's go ahead and get into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users have to say. Take it away, Juice.
Let's do it. Got it pulled up here, and we got a nice sample size on this one. So, there are 173 critics who rated this one, which is pretty high, just kind of by any standard. So that's good. So let's go around and guess first what we think the critics rated this movie. Bob, why don't you kick us off on The Descent?
Critics. I feel like they probably would be favorable. I'm going to go kind of high. I'm going to go with an 80.
80? Okay.
That's what we gave it.
Yeah. Randy, what do you think?
I think maybe a little higher. I'm going 90. I'll try 90.
90. So Rob did an 80. We got a tie.
Oh, shit.
Hey!
Yeah, so split down the middle because it's an 85. So Randy took the 90, Bob took the 80, and it's an 85.
Take the high road.
Yeah, so yeah. Well, I don't know. If we're playing Price is Right rules, you can't overbid.
Can't go over.
Don't
But-
take this away from me, motherfucker.
I'll give it a tie.
First tie ever.
Of the 173 critics who rated this, 147 said it was fresh, 26 said rotten. The average rating is 7.3 out of 10. So in that case, I guess Bob would be closer, but it is officially certified fresh. And yeah, sitting at a nice 80%. The critic consensus is, let me see. Deft direction and strong performances from its all-female cast guide The Descent, a riveting claustrophobic horror film. So yeah, nothing too crazy there.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's hop into the audience score. A nice sample size on this one as well. User rating 207,000. So 207,000 people have rated this movie. We'll start with Randy first. What do you think the people gave this one, Randy?
I'll follow the lead of the critics and say 85. I think it's a crowd pleaser.
Okay, 85. Robert?
75.
75. All right.
Going
Robert.
for that split.
Yeah, Robert nailed it on the 75.
shit.
It is, yeah, 75 exactly. Average
Man,
rating 3.4 out of 5. So the Straight Chilling crew actually split it right between the critics and the audience with our 80%. But overall, between the Straight Chilling crew, the people, and the critics, everybody is digging this movie. It is overall positive. And I'm a little surprised by its cult status. It's good. It's a solid movie. But I am a little surprised. Like, this is the one of, the 2000s that kind of stuck out to everybody, I guess. But I don't know. It is still good.
Really? Because, it was competing with, I I think that the only reason that this movie didn't have a bajillion sequels, a la fucking Wrong Turn or fucking Saw, like
It's got
I
a
think
couple.
it's got a couple, and they're like real low budge, but I think this one, because it was UK, I really think that does a number on people, especially at that time. It was like this movie. Part of my trivia is that this movie was released on the same weekend as the London bombings, so.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it kind of had a rough go of it at the box office. I think if it didn't have like those things going against it, and also if they hadn't sort of trimmed the wings of the American ending, I think it probably could have gone. Well, I mean, I don't know, but I think it could have gone further and been like an institution the way that Saw was, and the way, or even at least gotten a few more sequels in theaters. Like I don't know. I can't think of any off the top of my head. But
28 Days Later was a big British one that came out at a similar time.
Yeah, and it only got 2 sequels too.
Yeah.
I also think there's like different sensibilities in the UK. And if any of our Brits listening, feel free to call me an arsehole and tell me I'm wrong as shit or whatever.
Do you think we have any Brits
to me,
listening?
It seems
I never confirmed.
According
I know we have
to
some. I don't
our,
know how many.
we have some. We have some.
We'll have to see if some chime in. We've got some Australian people that chime in for us, and maybe some Canadians. I don't know. Chime in, everyone. Where are you from? Let us know.
Well, this I think the endless sequels are also like an American institution, like the way that 12 seasons of The Office or whatever, as opposed to 1 or 2 or whatever. I think it's that same sort of like just difference in priorities when it comes to storytelling and things like that. Producing.
It's weird. I don't know why the U.S. ending would appeal. I don't know why they would think it would appeal to like audiences more. There's not much difference, I guess,
it's
except
more of a grudge
that
ending.
she lives. I guess even though she still sees the ghost, she lives in the U.S. version, but in the UK one, like it's implied that she's about to die, I guess.
Well, part of the trivia is that they gave it to a test audience in America, and they decided, based on whatever feedback they got, that it was just too harsh. People didn't like the sad ending. They wanted somebody to get out of there.
Audiences.
What the
I know.
fuck?
Like,
Yeah,
why are you listening to those people?
They're not.
Stop testing things so hard.
People need to start
Especially
testing
if you're
on
just
the Straight Chilling crew. You know, we're pretty in line with the people. Most of we're middle of the people.
Just shoot it
We
off.
know what
We'll
people
tell you.
want.
If you have one ending released in one part of the world and a different one in a different part for like, that's ridiculous. Just stick to an ending.
Yeah.
I don't care
And
if it's
also,
the worst
like,
one.
why are you at this point? Like, if the movie has been released, why are you testing it on like American? You know, like if it's out.
Sure, if it was worth distributing, probably. But
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know, man. The stuffed shirts at some of these movie studios, they just have too much power, which is why this whole renaissance of sort of like the Into the Darks and the Blumhouse produced shit is so needed.
Yeah.
So necessary.
Living in the golden age, boys. In like 30 years, people are going to look back on this decade and cream their shorts.
Yeah, they are.
I need new shorts, guy.
Mostly
Be like,
people
wow,
just-
it must have all those young bucks are going to be like, oh man, it must have been amazing living in those times. We'd be like, yeah, we got to like go to the movies like every like month and see a baller ass horror movie. It was dope.
In 50
You little
years,
shit.
people are gonna be listening back to this podcast and like writing fan fictions and slash porn about us and
Yeah.
shit.
In
That's
30
where
years,
we're
we'll just be
going,
those
They're
old
gonna
guys
be
at the
most
cons talking about the cooters and the golden age, you know.
Getting
Once
wheeled around,
once the
talking
book is
about
out,
it.
you know, the cooter guideline, you know, that's really going to be the foundation of the next generation and how they're going to view horror movies, you know.
Is
The
there any other
cooter
way to pump
guideline.
ourselves up real quick?
Really inflating that ego. Randy, you got any leftover trivia for us?
I have a little. Yeah.
Let's do it. Take it away, dog.
So only a few things left because I kind of blew a few of them. But the crawlers were designed specifically to resemble Nosferatu from the film of the same name. They also had huge white eyes to begin with, but the idea was done away with because they looked too silly, apparently. It took 3.5 hours in makeup to transform an actor into a crawler, which actually is shockingly low based on some of the like
Not
other
bad.
stuff I've heard. Makeup chairs. And they had to shave off all of their body hair as well. So these were fucking like slug people or something. They had
They
full
look
Frank
slimy,
Reynolds.
dude. They look like
I was
Oh.
thinking about that when you said
I
slime
know, because
people.
we all exist in a world of just Always Sunny references. That's just
That's
what
all
we
we
do.
watch, apparently.
we met like most episodes include at least one Sunny
it's
reference,
just,
which is nuts.
If you ever hear us drop a Sunny reference, it's your duty as listeners to take a shot right then and there. I don't care if you're at the office. It's your duty.
That show has had quite an impact on our lives, apparently, on our psyche.
Apparently.
Yeah. As the Chrissy Orlando of podcast, we just want to say we love Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Drink your protein.
Let's see. The filmmakers considered it too dangerous to film in an actual cave. Did you guys know this? Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
I did know
It
that.
also would have been far too time consuming, so they opted to build one instead. This is a set. And I was really blown away by that because I bought it hook, line, and sinker. Hunk, line, and sinker.
I would prefer that as an actor, like to be, or even as a cameraman.
too.
Like I can imagine, like, oh, crawl through this fucking thing first. Like, fuck that. Just build it for me.
I literally made a comment to Becky about it where I was like, man, the logistics of this must have been a fucking nightmare because I never questioned whether or not they were in a cave. But I know that, of course they did that because the logistics would have been a fucking nightmare. It would have made no sense to do it that way.
Yeah.
But that's a testament to the set pieces in this movie. It not only like is a huge set piece that I loved and like really immersed me, but it also fucking like it also fooled me outright, like straight up. Let's see. The appearance of the creatures was kept a secret from the cast members until the first scene in which they encounter them. When the cast were finally filming the scene where the girls encountered the crawlers, the girls were genuinely scared and screamed the building down, running off set and laughing. Thank you, IMDb Trivia, for the colorful phrasing. But yeah, like that's great. I love that. I love when they do that kind of shit. Moving on.
No, yeah, I like that. I always like that too. You're always like, yeah, they don't know about it. And you're like, ah, shit.
It's like that famous thing. It's like that famous thing in Die Hard with Hans Gruber, how they like dropped him on the count of like 1 instead of 3. And so when Alan Rickman's falling, he's shitting his pants. Also, bear that in mind next time you watch the Die Hard next holiday season, I guess. Apparently. Let's see here. According
11 more months to go.
According to the audio commentary on the special edition DVD, there was an exact replica made of Nora Jane Noon, and after the movie was finished, she got to keep the head of the doll. She once put it in her mother's freezer as a joke.
Fuck you, Mom.
Nora, I love your style, Nora.
That's fantastic.
Mom, she had a heart attack and passed away.
Severed head was in there.
I love that. I enjoyed it. Anyway, so that's about it for the trivia. Everything else was fairly staid commentary from the IMDb trivia section.
We need to kick off the Cooter Watch.
Let's wrap up the show with a little bit of horror news then.
Whoa. Juice has a cooter somehow, and I want to hear all about it.
Why didn't you bring into the Cooter Watch?
Oh, Cooter Watch. Who's the Cooter?
Yeah, who Cooter is?
Drop the bumper?
Here you go.
Sounds great.
Now you can talk about Cooters.
Real professional here, Rob. Real professional.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I mean, we just got to discuss it. You know, Juno obviously could hit. And since we don't have a lot of female Cooters, I thought it was certainly worth the discussion in an all-female cast to see if we had a Cooter on our hands.
I think all these people are too down to earth, even in their flaws, to be considered a Cooter. Like she's a sexual deviant.
Yeah, I mean, she's got the sexual deviancy because she cheats. You know,
so a little manipulation, a little bit.
A little manipulation, some smug arrogance, like the whole like, oh, we're gonna go to this cave, like for the thrill of it, and like, nah. I mean, I don't know, and she leaves her friend to die. I mean, that's kind of on our ghost shittiness, you know, like just overall shittiness. I don't know, man.
Actually, you might be right. She might be like a really low level, low key Cooter.
Yeah,
going on.
low on the rung,
Sneaky
but I mean.
Cooter.
Yeah,
Sneaky
for
cooter.
an all-female cast, I just felt it was important. We don't get a lot of, just straight up female cooters. So I thought the discussion was, important for sure. I mean, I wouldn't put her strong. I feel like each one of her marks are like low on the points, but I
agree.
feel like she hits enough to kind of
Like if you count
register.
if you count each of the spots and give them each like 3 levels of 3 degrees of
I usually like to think of like
crime,
100%.
it's like a 1
with
on
each
4
tick
different
being
categories.
like a 25. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I feel like she would hit
Roughly the
like
same.
a 25 to 30% on the sexual deviancy because, cheating with your husband, with your best friend, like that's fucked up. But we don't get a lot of it. It's always like implied. So it's not like we get a sex scene between like her and her husband.
And she obviously
or-
feels guilt about it on some level.
Yeah. So she's
So
not
there's-
completely shitty, but she's got the kind of smug arrogance, like, oh, I'm this badass chick. I'm gonna like rappel down here and all that shit. You got to keep up with me. I don't know.
She never wrote a song about herself and jerked off to it, did she?
Well,
Remains to
TBD.
be
I mean,
seen.
it's not. We're
Deleted
not
scene.
100% sure.
I feel like she probably jerks off a lot though, all the time.
Yeah.
With her big dome.
Flicking the old bean, huh?
DJing.
Good lord.
Scratching the record.
I regret everything that I just did to this podcast.
Yeah, you did it, Randy. You did it to yourself.
fault.
All right,
I
Bob. Just wanted to, never
So-
skip the cooter watch again.
Juno. Sneaky
Or we're
cooter.
gonna have to catch you out of here, okay? I mean, come on.
Sorry. It won't ever happen again. Let's talk about a little bit of horror news.
So 2019, do we need to do like a most anticipated like movies of this year? Because I feel like it's about to
That-
blow up again. Like
That's
if they're like,
my entire horror news segment.
if
that's
it's like
what I
we
was gonna
gotta
do.
wrap up like this decade of golden age
Yeah.
horror like the right way, then fucking 2019 looks like it's about to cream our shorts.
Let me do my
Cream
job,
our
please.
short.
Yep.
Our collective shorts. So yeah,
Stop
I,
creaming my shorts, 2019.
I make like a master list of shit that's coming out like at the beginning of every year, and I try.
Uh-huh.
I use that to like pull from and like try and figure out like what we're going to talk about and like when we're going to work it into our schedule and stuff. So I've got this big ass list of movies.
Hang on, real quick before we go through the
Yeah.
list. Do you guys have like a number one you're most excited about for this year? I've got mine. I've got like probably a top 3, but I got a number 1.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a
It's-
number
Yeah.
1?
I do. I only have
Yeah,
a number 1,
I
really.
made
Wait,
a-
Randy.
I made a mock top 10 of
Oh.
2019.
Oh shit, mock draft.
Good
over
lord.
here.
Are we
I
in
did,
a
yeah.
fucking movie draft situation here?
I'm-
Oh lord.
I'm insane. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, what are you most anticipating, fellas?
For me, it's Us, because I'm excited to see what Jordan Peele does next. And don't
Sure.
tell me anything about it, because so far I've avoided all the trailers and things like that.
Nice.
I'm not really intentionally at first, but I was like, you know what? It sounds. Somebody complained that they gave away a lot in the trailer,
I
that-
read that too. I
so
still
I'm
haven't watched
intentionally
it.
avoiding whatever I can. All I've seen are like some vague references to scissors and shit. So we'll see what that
Lots
leads
of
to.
scissoring.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. But aside from that, like I'm curious to see how it ends. I'm excited to see the adult cast do their work on that.
Oh yeah.
Aside from that, there's nothing in particular that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can spur some thoughts though.
Annabelle 3. I mean, for sure, it's got to.
Oh shit!
Can't wait.
I
to
mean, we got to wrap up the trilogy. I mean, you got
trill.
to see how it ends.
We
know?
gotta
Round
see
out
how
the
the
trill.
Lanaverse wraps up.
One of the
It's
top
gonna be
trilogies of our age.
the Thor Ragnarok of the Wands.
Dude, for me, number 1, The Lighthouse.
Me too.
Dude, The
The Lighthouse?
Lighthouse.
That's
Dude, follow up on The Witch, which is what you thought Hereditary was.
Oh,
I love so much that you don't know what that dude's next movie actually is.
Me too. I
That is
love.
the fucking best.
Me and Bob were cracking up when I came into town about you and the Hereditary review.
pretty
But-
embarrassing.
The Lighthouse is actually what you should be judging against it, Randy.
Well,
Because
I'm excited about that then also.
yeah, fucking Defoe and Black and White and the
Oh,
Witch
I don't know anything
follow-up
about this movie. I think this might
Dude,
be the
we've
first I'm
talked
hearing.
about it on the show
We've talked
no,
about
at least once. At
Many
least
times.
once.
I'm here to read
man.
trivia because I can't retain information enough to have my own trivia. So I'm
Yeah,
not here. I'm not the memory boy.
That's
Yeah,
my number one, but I'm excited about a lot of things coming out this year.
Me too.
Because I feel
Yeah.
like it's a good blend too. Like, you know, we got the popcorn horror. I feel like we're getting the art house horror. Like, I feel like it's going to be a good blend of like straight entertainment, some really thoughtful
run it
things.
down.
Really like, okay, run it down for me.
I'm gonna run it down. So I've got them broken out into months. So January, the first release is gonna be Escape Room, coming out January 4th. There's a trailer out for it. It looks Saw-esque, I guess.
Now that's the new Spike Lee movie, or okay,
Yes.
that was a poorly executed joke on myself. So
100%.
self-dunk, but not in the way that I intended.
Glass is kind of the next big theatrical release. It's going to be January 18th, which Shyamalan, we'll see. We'll see if he can pull a hat trick. After that,
Fates should be low on that, but I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm hoping too. Crossing my fingers. There's a movie called The Final Wish coming out January 24th. I have no fucking idea what that's about, to be totally honest. There is, in February, a movie called Piercing, which I forget the director's name, but he directed Eyes of My Mother. It's called Piercing. The director from Eyes of My Mother, that's like his second movie, and it's apparently very brutal. If you haven't seen Eyes of My Mother, it was black and white. It might still be on Netflix, but it was like hard fucking core. There's some like scenes in it that were difficult to get through, and apparently this is going to be similar. February 8th, movie called The Prodigy. Super smart young child is fucked up. Seems like The Omen. It looks like The Omen.
Oh,
are we
going to
run down
like
each one of these movies?
Huh?
Gonna run down each one of these movies
real quick.
Okay, this might take a while.
All Hollywood condensed into one episode of this bullshit.
Coming out February 8th as well. It's a nunsploitation movie. Happy Death Day to You, February 14th, sequel to Happy Death Day. February 22nd, movie called The Turning. I don't really know anything about that one. February 22nd as well. Lords of Chaos coming out on VOD, which is something I definitely am looking forward to. I want to talk about. It's this. It's about this like black metal band or death metal band. It's got Rory Culkin in it.
Is that the one where the dude like kills everybody?
Yeah, it's like based on a true story where I forget the name of the band, but this dude, like the singer, goes fucking apeshit and starts like killing his band members and like burning down churches and stuff.
It just sounds like an adaptation of like Death Clock.
Yeah, doesn't it? That's immediately what I thought of.
Death Clock
is Brendan Small in it?
Adaptation of this real band.
Maybe.
I would think, yeah. Yeah. March 1st, movie called Climax, Gaspar Noé's new film.
See, I thought that was already out.
Well, you know, movies like this, they do like their festival circuit.
Festival,
shit,
okay.
And then usually the next year after that, they'll get some sort of like moderate to wide release. Also,
gotcha.
March 1st, movie called The Hole in the Ground. March 15th, Us from Mr. Jordan Peele. April 5th, Pet Sematary remake. Fuck yeah. April 12th, Hellboy. Kind of looks like Doo-Doo Brown. We'll see.
I'm glad that our expectations are being lowered because maybe it'll be like fine, you know, like the more like we lower them, the better chance it has.
I suppose you're right, yeah. April 19th, The Curse of La Llorona, which there's a trailer out for that now, produced by James Wan, the director of that, I forget his name. He's directing the third Conjuring movie.
Fuck that movie.
Yes. May 24th, Brightburn. Looks like a Superman story, but horror movie-wise. May 31st, fucking Godzilla. Fuck yes. Fuck yes. June
that movie's
21st.
gonna. I just like no. It's gonna be so dope. I just know it is.
I don't know, but a
lot of faith.
Got the faith.
June 21st. As of right now, we got 2 remakes coming out: Child's Play and The Grudge.
I just like saw a thing that The Grudge was being redone. I was like, why? Yeah, it's a redo of the remake of the American remake. So they're basing it like
Yeah.
specifically basing it off the American redo.
They're gonna have even whiter families in it.
Like,
The fucking Child's Play with Aubrey Plaza playing the mom.
Is she really? I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize either.
We'll see about all that. July 3rd, Annabelle 3. Yeah. Also, July 4th, finally, fucking Stranger Things 3.
Yeah. I love
Psyched.
that they're switching it up with the summer feel too.
I do too.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah. I'm digging it. August 2nd, New Mutants finally coming out, apparently. August 9th, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Also on August 9th, Ari Aster's second movie, Randy.
Yeah.
The Lighthouse.
Fuck yeah.
Finally.
August
September.
9th, you said? I need to circle that on the calendar.
Yes, August 9th.
How many Hail Marys and lashings do I owe myself for all that?
13 each. All
right, great.
September 6th, It Chapter 2. October 4th, that Joker movie, which I don't really know if that's going to be.
Oh, yeah, with
not,
Joaquin?
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix.
That's interesting, too. I like that they're releasing it around Halloween. I don't know. I'm being cautious, but I like some of the decisions that are being made, at least.
This is going to be another year where we have 10,000 little Jokers walking around on Halloween night. And when I mean little, I mean like 25-year-olds. And God.
Just cute little Joker, ain't you? October 11th, we're getting an animated Addams Family movie. Also on October 11th, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And also on October 11th, Zombieland 2.
That's that's weird to me,
That's
man.
weird. Yeah, it is weird.
I feel like these dates are definitely going to change, especially because they're set later in the year. They're going to have all these, like, there's no way all three of those movies are coming out on the same day. I can't really see that happening. November 27th, movie called Knives Out. And I've got really nothing for December, but I'm sure as the year progresses, shit will pop up. 3 from Hell is coming out. We don't have a date yet.
Whoa!
Dr. Sleep, the Rabid remake, In the Tall Grass. Jacob's Ladder remake is supposed to come out later this year. Crawl, which is like a alligator movie, which I'm pretty stoked about, actually. There's a lot of shit.
Dude, you missed a big one.
What?
God, and I'm gonna fuck up. I'm gonna calling your ass out. It's the dude who did Hereditary. God, what's the movie called?
Oh yeah, I forget what it. We've talked about it on the show too. I can't remember. What
his next movie's coming out this year, and it's about another cult, possibly following up the same cult, which would be interesting.
Really?
But I think it's set in Sweden though. What is it called?
It's A24's like most expensive movie to date. It's called Midsummer. So
okay, yeah.
Midsommar. It's one word. M-I-D.
Oh yeah, it's S-S-O-M-M. Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's right. So yeah, does it have a date?
Yeah, it says on IMDb anyway. It says August 9th.
August 9th. That was really close. That's like what? August 7th, the same as The Lighthouse, right?
Let me get back.
If those come out on the same weekend, holy gee.
That would be a mistake on his part.
That would be a weekend, my friend.
I mean, that'd be great
August
for
9th
us, but like,
The Lighthouse.
Well, you're going to severely cripple your chances at making money on one of or both of those movies.
That seems like a mistake, but I will be pleased. I personally will.
Since the world conforms to your desire, I'm sure that'll happen.
Damn, August is going to be a hot month. Woo!
Yeah. Randy, it's going to be really hard for you to tell those movies apart.
Yeah.
I can't wait for next year's top 10 where Randy's got to decipher which one of those actually follows up The Witch and which one follows up Hereditary.
I'm going to be fucking like, I don't even know, man.
I don't even know.
That was a great moment in straight chilling history. I love it.
For two of us. Sure.
So my mock top 10, I'm gonna run it down real quick. I've got The Lighthouse, Us, Lords of Chaos, It Chapter 2, The Ranger, Glass, Brightburn, Pet Sematary, Godzilla King of Monsters, and Zombieland 2.
Glass ain't gonna make it, guy.
Yeah, I'm like God,
That's
the
a very
optimistic,
optimistic pick.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not this
I wa-
year, guy. And it might be all right, but it's not making it this year. Not 2019.
Yeah,
2019's going out with a bang. We're blowing our load on this one. We're going out. Yeehaw, bitches. Yeehaw.
There's a lot of heat. There's a lot of heat coming out.
Once 2020 hits, we're done with movies.
Dude, well, the golden age is going to be done, you know? That's all I'm saying. Golden age. It's just going to be nothing but Slendermans and...
There's going to be a bunch of own adventure, one missed call sort of deals.
Just what the doctor ordered.
Something's about to hit.
So that's it for the horror news. We're going to be back next week with a brand new episode. It's going to be our first Patreon pick of the year. We're going to be talking about the Poughkeepsie tapes chosen by good patron Jose M. Thank you, sir. So fucking strap in for that one. I don't know if you guys have seen that before, but
I've been meaning.
It's not a light.
No, but
That's surprising. I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was apparently as brutal as you're making it out to be. I thought it was more like.
Well, I've never seen it either, so it's all just hearsay. Yeah. Rob has seen it, right? You've seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it once.
Have not seen it.
So tune in next week. Until then, you can rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at str8_chilling. We are on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send us an email through our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. And if you want to join us on Slack, just let me know through any one of those social media outlets, and I'll send you a link to do so. Shit's popping off on Slack. We've been talking about a lot of stuff.
Especially with that Bandersnatch and everything. And
games.
Yeah, so real quick, we didn't do our housekeeping, but we are getting close. Oh, we did? Oh, well, I missed my opportunity then. We are getting close. YouTube subscribers, I think, are close to 60. Thank you all so much. That's very awesome. Once we hit 100, we will be able to designate our URL, and we're going to try to start making some unique content for YouTube. But you got to hit that 100 first, so we got to entice you somehow. So hit that 100 for us. Check us out on YouTube, Straight Chilling Podcast. Hit subscribe, and we'll start making you guys some unique content for YouTube. Yeah. Also, we now have a Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/Straight Chilling Podcast. And this weekend, we're going to try our hand at some horror video games. So I splooged, and Xbox had this huge sale.
You might have been splurged, but maybe not. I don't know.
But huge sale, and I just bought up a bunch of horror video games. So we're going to try our hand at some streaming if you guys want to check in. I think I'm going to kick us off with a game called Little Nightmares. It's a bunch of them that I bought are kind of these platformer puzzle games, but not all of them. And if it goes well, we'll keep it going throughout the year with some new games. But I think I'm going to kick off some streaming, Little Nightmares, and it'll probably eventually make its way to YouTube as well. So another reason to subscribe to that. And we'll pop on there. And the cool thing about Twitch, I'll try to announce it on like Instagram or whatever. It's got like a live chat feed. So if anybody wants to tune in, watch it live, you can hit me up, chat me up, and I'll try to respond. And then if not, like I said, if you're just interested in the game itself, it'll make its way over to YouTube as well. So yeah, that should be fun. I'm thinking, sometime this weekend. Maybe Saturday night, maybe Sunday. I'm not sure. So I'll try to announce it at least a little bit of time on Instagram, and we'll try to keep it regular week to week. But yeah, it's a little horror video game, straight chilling, expanding ourselves.
Yeah. New year, new shit.
Yep. Yeah.
Sorry.
We're really splooging this year.
Splooging everywhere.
I splooged.
You gotta cast a wide splooge.
I would, dude. I'd save some money, man. Like the sale, it was dope. Bought a lot of things for cheap.
I got a sale through Switch, which nobody cares about, but I got like 4 games for like $30.
Yeah,
Hollow Knight and what else did I get? Shit, Grim Fandango remastered.
Cool.
Yeah, Monopoly and Risk, which is something that Becky and I play together.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Cool.
it was good.
Dope. Yeah, that's going to do it for us. Check out our Twitch channel. Check out our YouTube channel. Check out all the channels, even the Slack channel. Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, keep chilling.